Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
Good Saturday afternoon out there, everyone. Welcome to your number one source for Native American television news. It's Native News Today, and I'm your host, Jason Salzman. And as you can see, we are in a little bit different surroundings today. We have shifted it over to the Mvskoke Media Newsroom. Most of you that watch us every Saturday know from time to time when we need to jump into more news type pieces, we will come into the newsroom, break things down with our editorial staff. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by the manager of Mvskoke Media, Mr. Sterling Cosper. Sterling, thank you for being with us, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
And it's good to have you in studio again here in the newsroom. But the reason we brought you in today is, folks, we have a big election coming up at Mvskoke Creek Nation. We've been talking about it for the last couple weeks here on the program, but now we're really getting into the nitty-gritty, as our opener says, the nitty-gritty of election season.
Yes, sir.
And for us at Mvskoke Media, the only busyness type of scenario that rivals this time of year for us would be festival. Just so happens that this year we have to jump from one right to the other. So out of the frying pan into the fire.
That's right.
So we're bringing in Sterling. And Sterling, the reason why we're bringing you in is because a lot of people out there know, historically, Mvskoke Media, Mvskoke Creek Nation, being the fourth tribe in America in 2015 to be granted free press legislation. That law went into act, and we have been acting accordingly ever since with our coverage. And for everybody out there that may not know, Sterling, just explain a little bit of how this first election cycle would differ from how we would cover ones in the past previously.
Well, it's really interesting, Jason. To be honest, our law passed during the last election cycle, more or less within that same time window. So we've had a fair amount of time to get our feet under us and work out our processes, and I think we're all amped up to take care of these midterm elections for Council CB that are coming up here through the fall.
Yeah, and I know that when we say elections around Indian country, the people in the know, sort of tribal citizens that take part in the democracy, tribal employees, tribal dignitaries, tribal leaders, they all do sort of this, like a little gasp or, oh, here we go, roller coaster ride. It's really up to us to kind of sift through all that madness and provide the voters, the citizens, with every resource that they could possibly need to make a well-informed decision come Election Day.
And that's the aim this year. In the past, if you followed some of our candidate profiles, you might find more or less we throw it out there and get some basic, what I call them more like demographic information, clan, tribal town, and essentially they, in the bottom section, fill out whatever they want. And that's the way we did it. I was former editor of the Mvskoke Nation News, so I handled a lot of these, but always heard feedback about, boy, we'd sure like to know a little bit more. And of course, that's even bigger cause for concern for people like our at-large voters. Some of the citizens within the jurisdiction may have some of the candidates come around and the communities have a chance to ask them their more specific concerns. But our goal this time with Free Press is we don't have so much a concern about reprisal. Say we do stick someone with a hard question that may make them uncomfortable. Well, that's the job of the press, and that's our obligation to the citizens and should be our elected officials too. So our hope with this process is that we feel empowered to engage the citizen, or the candidates rather, about pertinent and topical issues at the tribe, so the voters can make a more informed decision. And my hope too, in doing so, is that perhaps if the citizens feel more engaged, we may drive up voter numbers now and in the future.
And that's been an ultimate goal of ours, and really the Mvskoke Creek Nation over the past several years, is to get those voter numbers up. Another thing, Sterling, is not only telling people out there how our coverage differs and wanting them to have an understanding of that, but really in lots of ways, the people that are running to know what we do here and how it differs from maybe in the past, such as, charging and fair use and things like that. Can you go over a little bit of that?
Yeah, Jessica is going to be on here in a second. She's going to go into a little bit more about what the candidates can expect coming up and providing information on the editorial end. Another aspect maybe a lot of folks haven't thought of is in our law there is specific language that basically says we are going to sell campaign advertising. Again, we haven't done that in the past, and as former editor, again, there may be some concerns about reprisal, our ability to enforce deadlines, things like that, and consideration of these people may be in power in the future. Well, now there's no more of that concern, and they saw fit to write into our law specifically that we will sell those. So that's a good opportunity. If candidates didn't get their chance to say what they wanted to come to the table and say specifically when answering questions on the editorial end, they can purchase ad space and address the citizens essentially how they want within some rules and guidelines that we'll go over with them. And part of that too is following like campaign finance ethics and us kind of helping out with that. The flip side of that too is that we've had a big initiative to start promoting our self-funding at the tribe, and that's going to be a good source of revenue for us here in the last quarter of the fiscal year.
A lot of things to cover, a lot of interesting tidbits, and you can find and see this in action a lot if you follow us, and as I encourage you to do every single week on all of our outlets, MvskokeMedia.com. It's an exciting time around here. It's going to be very exciting. It's going to heat up as we go in throughout the summer and into the fall as this election season really heats up, kicks off. Sterling, thanks so much for stopping by with us today and breaking some of these things down, and we'll let you get going because it's probably, other than festival, as we said, the busiest time of year around.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
All right, thank you, sir, very much. Let's take a quick break. Nobody go anywhere. As Sterling said, we're going to have a little bit more with Jessica McBride, our editor here at the Mvskoke Nation News, excuse me. We're going to have a little bit more on how we're exactly rolling out this strategy, what it's actually going to mean as far as the steps we're taking and the coverage that we're going to provide for the election season. So don't go anywhere. We're going to take our first break here, and you're watching Native News Today. And welcome back to Native News Today, and we are still here in the Mvskoke Media Newsroom. I am now joined by the managing editor of the Mvskoke Nation News, Ms. Jessica McBride, a veteran colleague of mine here on the show in episodes past. So I have no doubt that she feels comfortable and ready to go. Jessica, how has it been getting ready for election season?
Well, we just finished festival. We wrapped that up.
Right.
July 15th edition is our festival edition, so make sure to get a copy of that
right.
for all the festival pictures, and now we're on to elections.
Awesome, awesome. Well, one of the things, too, that we've been talking about, and I mentioned with Sterling a little bit earlier, is our voting numbers. It's something that inescapably has been a problem here at Mvskoke Creek Nation, specifically in the low voter turnout. We're trying to get more people engaged in the way that the democracy here at Mvskoke Creek Nation government works, and being a part of that is voting, letting your voice be heard. Probably the biggest part of that. And it's something that our citizens can actively be involved in. I wrote a column recently for the paper about voter apathy, turnout, and some of the things that we should tackle in issues regarding this. So one of the places I know that you and I have both in our different coverage have stopped is the election board. We've seen some turnover to different people, and I think they're pretty excited about getting more information out, working with us.
Right. They want to get out as much information as possible, and one of the things we both agree on is citizens need to know how to register to vote.
Yes. Yeah, and with that being said, Devaney Luxinger for Native News Today went over today to the election board, talked with Nelson Harjo there about how do you register? Simply just get the information out there. We're going to start from the bottom and just work our way up with everything. So we want to show you this video now with Nelson Harjo.
When you register to vote, we have registration forms that we have for citizens to fill out. It has basic information like your name, your address, your date of birth, your roll number. There is a line for your social security number, but we only ask that you put the last four. The social security number helps us locate you. If you don't have your roll number, or if you don't know it, we can look you up in the Citizenship Office's database. So that's why we ask for the last four of your social. Our registration forms, you can pick one up here at the office, or you can go online to Mvskoke Creek Nation's website and find our page and the website. We have several forms there that are posted that people can print off. And we can also, if you call us, we can mail you, or fax you a form. So that the basic registration process, the documents that you'll need to present whenever you're registering is, if you have it with you, your citizenship card. That's basically the main items. Whenever you fill out your registration form, there will be check boxes on there that shows how you would like to vote. Whenever you fill out the initial registration form, there will be two check boxes that will say, I am a new voter, and there will be one underneath it that says, I do want to vote by absentee. So they fill out the same form as somebody that would want to vote at the polling site. There is on our homepage, we do have a map with all the dates, or the addresses of the each polling site locations, and it has them located on the map, so they can look it up that way, or they can give us a call.
And I want to thank Nelson Harjo and all the people over the election board once again for that interview, allowing us to come over and get some of that information out. And Jessica, if people out there need more information for that, election board, definitely accessible.
Absolutely. They've got information on the Creek Nation website, and you can also call them so you can get all the information on how to register to vote or any questions you have about this upcoming election. The phone number is 918-732-7631.
Yeah, and as we talked a little bit earlier, with the passage of the Free Press Bill and how historically, monumentous that was for us, and it's just a big occasion, historically speaking, for the Mvskoke Creek Nation. That was in 2015. As well, in 2015, a law passed regarding campaign finance, and basically establishing an ethics commission and a committee to look over these type of things that we know that finances can influence campaigns. We've seen it happen all the time, in regular politics, in United States politics, and Mvskoke Creek Nation politics. It just happens. It's part of the game. And any place that really wants to keep that from happening definitely has campaign finance legislation in place. So Mvskoke Creek Nation establishes that in 2015, a law, like I said, establishing a committee this committee basically supposed to have recommendations from the principal chief, recommendation from the council to sit on the committee. So with that in mind, we contacted the principal chief, James Floyd, to talk with him about his committee, I don't know what you would call it, nomination, I guess.
And a little bit
Nomination of
about the
committee.
commission, too.
Right, and a little bit about the commission as well, his understanding of it, where it has came from the time that the law was passed to now, present day. So we spoke with Principal Chief James Floyd about campaign finance.
Yes, we've been aware of the act pretty much since I've been in office, and in the requirements it places both on the executive and the legislative branches. The commission are three people. One that is appointed by the principal chief, one that's appointed by the National Council, and then the two commissioners that are appointed select a third commissioner. So at this point, we've named our nominee, submitted to the National Council, and I think their nominee is pending. So the commission's not complete as we speak. We made our nomination last month. I believe so. I think it's pretty imminent that the commission will be seated and active and operational during the election period, or I would say post-filing period. As I understand it with the law, the commission will communicate how they will accept any complaints or questions regarding the election, and also communicate to them the cost, because I think there's a cost that they will impose to address any frivolous issues, so that we make sure that there's significant issues that are being raised. And so I believe the commission will then come out and communicate that. I would expect that they would be active by the end of July, and we'd get communication. I'm sure that through our Office of Public Relations, through Mvskoke Media, all the venues that we have to communicate to our citizens would be promoting the, the activation of the commission. Well, the candidate fair is next week, and I know that they will probably receive some information about this. I would assume they would receive information about this at the candidate fair. And how it will operate and how the candidates could communicate to the commission. My nomination or my appointment to the commission is Darlene Tarioli. To my knowledge, because the bill was passed in 2015, but to my knowledge, there was no mention of that in the 2015 campaign. Well, first of all, we have a new a new election board manager. And so I think that individual will be communicating a lot more information. And so we'll see how that goes in terms of response that we get from citizens or voters or candidates. And we'll see how the commission operates and its effectiveness as it receives any complaints or questions. It's possible. I think that at the present time, I've not heard of any amendments being considered by the National Council. So it's really hard for me to tell. I don't know if I can answer on behalf of the National Council. It's, they may be looking at things I'm not aware of. Well, I think having a commission in place is a good assurance to our voters that we're trying to make sure that the election process is conducted in the highest possible ethical manner. And this is a further step in giving assurance to our voters. And I think that's positive and a very good thing for our people.
Well, there you have comments from Principal Chief James Floyd on this law, and we definitely wanted to reach out to him for sure. Also, another we wanted to reach out to was the original sponsor of this legislation, this bill, Mr. Lucian Tiger, the Speaker of the National Council. Jessica, you all reached out to him and received a statement.
He sponsored this legislation back in 2015 with a few other of the National Council representatives. We reached out to him. He's made his nomination as of July 7th, and his nomination is Shirley Almarigi.
And we have confirmation on the nomination of, or the appointment that Chief Floyd has put forth too, right?
Correct. He says in his interview that he has appointed his nomination as of June, and his nomination is Darlene Terrioli.
Yeah, and now the next level of this is getting those appointees. Now they have to work together to get an appointee. I'm talking the chief of the National Council, an appointee ready to make a budget, to submit a budget for this law to work.
Before they can really do the budget, though, these appointed individuals, these two individuals, will have to get together and make a third their nomination to this commission.
Right. Once they
do that, they need to approach the nation for a budget. What they'll do is they'll request information from the controller, Linda Rowe. We actually reached out to her, and she said that she doesn't have a budget as of yet. And one of two things will happen. If she gets a budget before the end of July, it will be included in the comprehensive annual budget for the nation for 2018, or they can go forth to the council for a special appropriation.
Yeah. And I think, so there you have it. Our coverage to this point has been very complex. It's got a lot of different moving parts to it, just like this bill. So please stay with us on MvskokeMedia.com, on the Muskogee Nation news outlets, to stay with this entire story as we cover this small piece of the election, which is to do with this new legislation being in place for the first time, as we said. Now, in those comments, it's important to recognize, in those comments with Principal Chief James Floyd, he did indicate that this would be ready to go. And I'm talking the law in effect, people seated, everything ready, the budget all through to the controller's office by the start of the election. Technically, the start of the election is this Monday, the 17th. So we're going to have to get that third committee member in. We're going to have to get a budget not only submitted but approved through finance for all that to be true come Monday, which is the filing date. I believe it's the 17th, right?
Right,
That's the
filing
date.
is the 17th through the 19th.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see because, as we said, Chief's nominee, I keep saying nominee, but Chief's appointment was put forth at the end of June. Lucian Tiger's appointment put forth July 7th, just a week ago. And now to see, if we can get all this through and functioning and seated, ready to go by what begins the election, which for all intents and purposes is a filing day, which is coming up in just a few days. So we'll definitely have all of this for you and all of this as it rolls out, and make sure that you're staying with Muskogee Media, as we said, not only on our Facebook page, because we're going to release a lot of things on there, but YouTube as well. We're going to have our channel rolling with all of the stuff that we get as it becomes on-demand content for you out there. As we get it, you're going to get it. Just as soon as we can get it uploaded, you'll have it there in the palms of your hands or on any of your outlets that you use. So Jessica, moving right along, that'll be interesting to look at the timing of this to see if it can really all come together. That's something I think that's kind of become the story here. It's not so much that we're covering this law, but will it be able to be enacted by the time the election comes around? That's something that we're, as journalists, as the Mvskoke media, that's our job to follow the story. I think that's what's become the story here, is to look at the timing of this. So it's going to be a lot of work for us, but we really love to do that for you folks out there, the citizens, to make sure that you have everything as it's happening, sort of a timeline to keep you up to speed on all things as we steam towards the election. Jessica, one of the ways that we're doing that here at Mvskoke Media as well is through basically our strategy of putting this forth to the citizens. And that's going to entail lots of things. Of course, we're going to have our candidate profiles, as we always do. Sterling a little bit touched on the fact that we're trying to get away from the old formulaic candidate profile in different ways, but also integrating some video profiles in as well for the people to really have, that close, face-to-face sort of recognition and introduction to who these candidates are.
Right, we've really expanded our profiles this year. Like Jason said, we're still going to do the print profiles that will be in the August 15th edition of the Mvskoke Nation News. They'll also be online. We're actually asking questions of the candidates this year. All of those questions are right now online here at mvskokemedia.com. We're also doing video profiles. Candidates will have the option to come in. They'll schedule a time. They can come in, and they won't see the questions until they get in the chair. So we're doing all of that for the primary election, and then, of course, stay tuned for the general election because we're going to be hosting video debates.
Got debates coming up. We'll have every single week there'll be something coming up for you to see the debate, to see the issues that these candidates are talking about amongst themselves and amongst their constituents in their respective districts and the people that they're going to be representing. Really, they represent all the people and the citizenry of the Mvskoke Creek Nation. But those people in those districts are going to their representative, and they're talking about the things that they need to be brought before the council. So it's a wonderful thing that we're able to be tasked with here at Mvskoke Media, and that's getting our voters, our potential voters out there, not only signed up, but get everything that they need to make the best decision that they can for themselves and for this nation. So I know that you're excited about not only getting the festival edition out of the way, but we can really concentrate on election coverage once that's out of the way.
And we want citizens, like you said, to have all the information that they need to know. And a lot of that is questions. So if you're a candidate and you want to see what we've got going on and plan accordingly, go to mvskokemedia.com. There's a little button there that says click here if you're a candidate, and you can do that. Or if you're just curious on how we're operating things, all the details are there.
Everything's there where you need it. Mvskokemedia.com, Native News Today Facebook page, Native News Today YouTube, of course, Mvskoke Nation News. Jessica, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Sterling Cosper. We'll see you guys next week here on Native News Today.